So, I drew a comic which was about building a ball pit in your house. Like putting up a baby gate and then just filling the apartment or the house with playpen balls about yay deep. And when I drew the comic, I had not actually done this. I just thought that's a really cool idea, and one of the great things about doing comics is that you can draw great ideas and then see them there, and then you don't have to do all the extra work of like building it. So I drew this comic, and I had thought about this over the years. Like it'd be kind of cool to have a ball pit in your house. You could just like hide under it and sneak around. But I was thinking like there are obvious problems. Like for starters, hygiene. I figured that's not going to work. You're going to drop food. It just seemed, how would you clean it? So I just did a comic about it instead, avoiding all of the practical problems. And I get an email, and it's from Richard. No, it's it's from this guy in Boston who says, "Hey, I saw your comic. It was a great idea, so I built one." And he included photos. He had put it up on his blog. He was like, he had a party in it. He had fenced off an area under. He had a lofted bed, and so he fenced off a region under it, and filled it up about yay deep, and had some parties. And I was like, this is actually practical. I didn't realize. So I email him back. He's like, where did you get them? And he says that one thing you have to do is you have to get the crush-proof kind, because with adults jumping into a ball pit, they tend to get flattened a lot if you don't have those. So I talked to him a little bit, and he says, yeah, I got them from this great company in Florida called Tinker Tots, which sells playpen balls. So I go onto the Tinker Tots website, and they sell, and I buy a couple of batches of their crush-proof playpen balls. They get shipped to my house. It turns out there's no way to compress playpen balls for shipping. They just ship the size they are. So I get a couple of these big boxes, and we cordon off an area and block it with some furniture and put up a barrier and fill it up, and we have a ball pit in our house. And we invite a bunch of people over, and they all jump in, and everyone is hanging out in it, and everyone says it's lots of fun, but then like after a few minutes of jumping in, it's sort of the size of a hot tub basically, and after a few minutes of like lounging around in it, everyone comes up with the same complaint, which is it's really too small. So that's that was in the middle of the first year that I had been doing XKCD like as a full-fledged business. I moved to Boston, we had the sysadmin for the website and I had gotten an apartment together, and we had an honest-to-God business, filed, incorporated, all that stuff. And so at the end of the year, we get our first end-of-year profit, which is kind of cool. And so we're sitting around with this like extra little batch of money, since people have bought a bunch of more shirts for Christmas than we expected, which I really appreciate, thank you. And we were deciding, okay, what should we do with this? We could put, save it, buy a nice high-end bicycle to get around Boston, get a nice couch for the living room. So there we are back on the Tinker Tots website. And the thing is, they sell these playpen balls in batches. We get them in batches of 50 or 100, or if you want to get a bulk order, you can get them a batch of 500 of them. And it turns out we did some calculations, and it takes more than it takes a lot of playpen balls to fill an area, like more than you would probably estimate. So we did some calculations, and then we go onto the site, and in ordering, they have the maximum size for each batch is 500. So we order 10,000. Costs about as much as a nice couch. And then we get. So I placed this order at about 5 p.m. And at 6:30 p.m. I get a phone call. I answer, and it's this nice lady who says, "Hi, this is Lillian from Tinker Tots. Did you just place an extremely large order for playpen balls?" And I said, "Yeah, I did. Is that a problem?" And then she was like, "No problem. That is awesome. We're very happy to have your business." Because I had clearly just like ordered more than they sold in the rest of the year or something. And she said, "It's not a problem at all. And then the other thing I thought is, oh, is it the shipping? Because I noticed their shipping calculator didn't give me a shipping price. It didn't, and it turned out it had just, it couldn't handle an order of that size. And she said, okay, so we do need to figure out shipping. We need to get a separate payment for you for shipping. We can come, the thing is, we have to rent a truck for this. Because, again, there is no way to compress playpen balls for shipment. But they're like, we'll take half the cost. You know, it didn't turn out to be too big a problem. And about 4 or 5 days later, this truck pulls up in front of my apartment, and a guy like unloads a big 2.5 by 2.5 by 2 foot box, and carries it in, puts it in our front hall, goes back out, comes back in with another one, goes back out, and I quickly realized the front hall is filling up and the guy is showing no signs of stopping. So we start hurriedly carrying them up the stairs, coming back down. He's brought more of them. We bring them up, and he ends up bringing in the 20 or so boxes that it took. We open them all up, and we pour them. We had actually, since we knew they were arriving that day, we built a structure to cordon off half of the room, and it turns out it has to be pretty strong. So we had to sink some bolts into the wall and to anchor this wall that would hold them in. And then we bring up all the boxes and one by one pour them in. We have a couch in the middle. We thought that would be good. And it starts filling up and up and up and up to about here, filling most of the living room. Now, so you know how there are some things that they seem like a good idea when you have them, but then it's sort of like having someone play the violin at your dinner, where it seems like it's going to be really cool, and then you have it, and then at first it's like, this is awesome, and then you're like, okay, there's this guy here who I've gotten kind of tired of, and I would really like to just have a conversation or something, but it's kind of awkward. Do we look at him? And so it turns out to sort of not be as fun and kind of a letdown in practice. So this, it turns out, is not one of those things. This was awesome. What we did, the next thing we did is we built a rack mounted along the ceiling. We couldn't drill into the ceiling because it's old Boston plaster that would come apart. So we had a set of rails coming from one wall to the other, and we hung a projector and had it project onto the opposite wall. And then on the inner wall of the ball pit, we put holders to hold all the game console controllers. And if you've never lounged around in a 3 foot deep, 10,000 ball pit, let me explain what it's like. It's actually, as you sink deeper into them, the McDonald's things, which I only vaguely remember, I haven't been in since I was 3, 4, or 5 or whatever. They're not that deep, so you pretty much just, as you move around, it jostles the balls around. They're very lightweight. They don't resist you. But the deeper you get, the more friction there is, and the more weight there is compressing them together, and the harder it is to get them to move. So there's a point, like a stasis point, about 2 feet down in a ball pit, maybe 1.5 feet, where a person's weight isn't enough to push the balls aside. And you just sink into it sort of to around that point, and then you just settle. Your arms will settle up higher, and it's sort of like a form-fitting chair. It supports your whole body. And you can just lounge and watch a movie, and or play a video game. And the problem is that you settle in and you sort of stop, but every time there's a little bit of a jostling motion, you sink a little bit further. So one place that this was a particularly big problem was that often we would there'd be a couple of us hang out in the living room and we'd have a laptop open or something, and so I would have my laptop open, and if you turn away to watch, it's projecting something onto the screen or whatever, and it'll just sort of, it'll tip up a little bit, sort of like a Titanic type motion, and then if you move or shuffle or just jostle as you're watching, it'll start to slide sideways down. And so I look away for a very short time, look back, and my laptop is gone. So we dive around, and I'm can't find it. And then I realize that I get out of the laptop, and I go over to my roommate and get her the laptop, which is on the wireless, SSH to my laptop. All right, logged in, awesome. Let's see, and then I have to remember, I'm thinking, okay, I can't remember a command line music player, so just cat/dev/urandom /dev/dsp, which sends the output of the random number generator directly to the speakers. And there is a blast of static from the middle of the ball pit. And I jump in and follow it straight to the missing laptop. And we actually did a really good job. We had a strict set of rules about what you could bring into the ball pit. The nightmare was we didn't want to have a fluid, like some kind of a spill to clean up, because that would require like pulling everyone out. So one of the first things people would ask is like, so how do you clean it? And the way I thought about it was, I was thinking like, if you don't get it messy, like, I guess it's sort of like a couch, like you sit on a couch, but you don't clean a couch, right? And then I realized, like, am I supposed to be cleaning my couch? But we had the ball pit in that apartment for 3 or 4 years, and it was fine. And we had very strict rules about no eating, no bringing food in. You could only have drinks if they were in spill-proof containers, and the only spill-proof containers we could find were those little kid, brightly colored containers, which I guess sort of fit with the whole vibe. But, and no leaving fluids in the ball pit that you brought in with you, because the ball pit that my friend built ended up turning into his roommate. She sort of took it over, and it turned into sort of the lesbian hookup ball pit. Every time she brought a date home. But the ball pit was a big hit, and one of the things was that we would have parties and people would come in and we'd put a movie on the projector on the opposite wall. And like I said, it's really surprisingly comfortable. It just sort of supports you and you fall asleep. So if you remember what I said about the laptop and how it was synced slowly, it turns out that a person in the ball pit over the course of a movie will also sink slowly if they don't move a little bit now and then to like bring themselves back up, bring their buoyancy, push them back up to the surface. So frequently, we had people fall asleep in the ball pit and then just disappear. Which sort of led to this problem that I never knew how many people were in my apartment.